Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome to the Two Dudes, Brews, and Reviews podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about the wildly underrated Martin Scorsese film, The King of Comedy, from 1982. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
Are we recording right now?
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know.
We're drinking Dominga Paloma Sours from New Belgium.
Took me a minute to start liking this one. I'm becoming more attuned the more we drink it. And you're right about the vanilla thing. It definitely has that going for it.
Not as tart as I thought it was going to be. It's actually pretty crisp and refreshing. There was I told you when we were at the liquor store when we were looking at beers. I cannot remember the name of that. It's like a German beer.
Are you talking about the one that you said sucked?
Yes. That shit's awful. It's like a grapefruit ale, I would say. It reminds me of like Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy, and I hate that stuff.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's like lemonade and fucking, I don't know, how would you even put it? It's like lemonade wheat beer, basically.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting.
I hate wheat beer.
It's exactly that, but grapefruit, and it's repulsive and disgusting. They served it at the Disney resort that we were staying at, and so I got it a few nights, and it was fucking disgusting every time I got it. But I was like, I like grapefruit. I'm gonna pass on that. But this is more tasteful. It's light, crisp, refreshing. It's been hot here in Ohio for the first time in 10 years, it feels like, so it pairs well with a nice cool evening.
Yeah, I couldn't do the IPA thing today.
Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna pass. We even ate Chipotle, like a couple of whites.
Couple of whites.
You know us white people, we're fun. We like to take culture and make it ours somehow. Anyway,
That's what we do.
we watched The King of Comedy on your recommendation here.
Yes, we did. This is a movie that I didn't see until this year. Did you know anything about it, like before I recommended it?
No, not at all. I didn't even know it was a movie, so... Craziest thing about it is you'd think when I saw The Joker and when it kind of made its way through media and pop culture and all that, you'd think I would have picked up on references to The King of Comedy and everything. Nah, not at all. Like, I had no idea that was even remotely close to what the movie was playing off of.
Yeah, and it didn't cause like a resurgence of interest in this movie. I feel like I saw a lot of Taxi Driver comparisons being thrown around instead of this one, and I think it takes more from The King of Comedy than it does Taxi Driver.
I have not seen Taxi Driver. The only Scorsese movies I've seen, and I looked this up today just to come into the podcast, it's The Wolf of Wall Street, Hugo, Shark Tale, I believe is a Scorsese film.
Shark Tale?
I think so.
No, there's no fucking way. That movie is like ass.
What?
That's like Will Smith, right?
Will Smith and Jack Black, bro.
Yeah, I hate that movie.
You don't like Lenny the shark?
No, I remember I saw that in theaters, and even third grade version of me thought it was bad.
Lucky the seahorse, he loses and eats shit. You don't remember that?
Do you have like a Kung Fu Panda kind of relationship with Shark Tale as well?
No. I don't know why I thought it was direct. Okay, it's just one of them Google things where you look up a director and somehow fucking they get tied to a DreamWorks film. But yeah, this movie, I thought going into it was going to be a lot darker than what it was, just because of the knowledge of it being the groundwork for Joker.
Yeah. You told me to go a little lighter on you this time, and I kind of knew this movie didn't go that dark. I'd say the themes are dark and the actions are kind of dark towards the end, but since the movie is being told through Rupert's eyes, everything has this like glamour about it, I guess.
There's almost like this sense of joy through like every scene and like this confidence that is not reflected in any other character. You know, I found it was honestly really refreshing to watch a movie like this. This movie came out in the 80s, 83. And you know, sometimes the characteristics of like older films like this, it makes me so happy. Like the graininess, kind of like the sound design is a little bit monotone, and you can tell where things are shoehorned in. Like I noticed quite a bit when the secretary's phone would ring. It was like not on set. It was like
stock sounds.
I found that refreshing. It made me happy because it reminded me, because Blade Runner came out the year before. The sound design in that film is also like lackluster by today's standards as well. And I just found that shit, it's like a little time capsule. I love old films for that reason. And especially when you haven't seen something before, it's coming from like a legendary director like Martin Scorsese. It feels like I'm digging up a fossil of some sort. Like it's something that, again, it didn't have that resurgence like when Joker came out. So it kind of felt special. It was a movie that like kind of flopped in the box office and critical reception was poor. But it felt very modern and like in the tones and stuff. It's not something that I would really expect to like not get that critical reception.
I don't think the world was ready for a movie like this at the time. In 2022, like right now, I think people are really used to peeling back the curtain on celebrity life. We all know what's going on with celebrities and stuff. Back then, it was a lot more secretive. You would think of celebrities just in the glamorous way. Like you didn't think of them being unhappy or bothered by fans and stuff. And I feel like that may have come across in a negative way in 1983. But through the eyes of today, it feels still like super relevant.
I can't help but think like even through like the early 2000s, like I remember vividly, and we may have talked about it on the podcast before, Michael Jackson, just the way the media kind of ripped him apart in the latter years of his life. When I remember being a kid and it just felt like when Michael Jackson was in the news, it was like this negative.
Always.
And it felt when you're like, 12 and 11 or whatever, however the fuck I was, like it just felt wrong. You got fed that information and you're just like, you shake your head because you don't have that like, I don't know. I didn't
that bullshit detector yet.
Yeah, I didn't have that like reference to pull off of. It's like, that shit came on TMZ or like Extra, the shit that would come on like after or before like Wheel of Fortune or whatever the fuck. When did you see this movie for the first time? Was it, you said it was earlier this year?
Yeah, it was probably in January. We're in May right now. Olivia, she had bought it on Vudu like years ago. We had it sitting in our library for a long time, and we just randomly picked it to watch one movie night. And I remember walking away from the movie and just thinking like, that was really different, especially considering, and I'm not a Martin Scorsese like expert or anything, but I'm used to like violence in his movies, like Taxi Driver, and then you got like Casino, Goodfellas,
gang related things,
all this mob stuff. In this movie, no violence. I mean, there's like one punch thrown maybe towards the end. I feel like this movie is trying to get across like ideas instead of being this like super entertaining film, but I actually appreciate it more for that reason.
It's also interesting when you frame De Niro in like this victim role almost. He's the loser in a way, and also he doesn't have redeeming qualities either. Like I've never seen Taxi Driver, but I'm pretty sure it's a little bit like he's an outcast type.
Yeah, I'd say so. That character almost mirrors this one in a lot of ways, except that one turns to violence where Rupert is like physically he's a manipulator and he's like physically weak in most aspects.
I had mentioned to you earlier, like the way he's framed on camera, like his silhouette. It's weird. It's like he has like the body of like Raging Bull and Taxi Driver, and like his haircut, it makes his head look so big, and the way he wears his suit, like not to say that it doesn't look good, but he just he feels small. His physical presence is not there. Like I think him constantly wearing the suit, man, it kind of feels like he's wrapped up at all times, and he's like extremely slender with this big old head hanging on the end. Not to say that De Niro has a big head, like I don't want to get whacked, but like it's just the hairstyle. Like he just has like this big poofy head. I don't know. To me, he just feels insignificant. Obviously, body language plays a huge role into that as well. Like, 'cause he kind of always feels like he's scrambling to tie a bow on something. And
that's a good way to put it.
He's trying to like wrap water up in a plastic bag, and he's like trying to keep from the holes from coming out. Like he's wrapped up in lies and manipulation and delusion, which I found really entertaining and tasteful compared to Joker. I mean, I think the soundtrack for that movie really helped push those really dark themes over the top. And I mean that in a good way. Like that's a great film, and I went and watched it in theaters, and I loved it. But you really want Joaquin Phoenix's character to win, but also
kind of.
But also you don't. Like the funny thing is, and let's tackle the subject of like daydreaming and delusion. I don't think there's a human being on earth that hasn't daydreamed and has imagination and all these things. And I think it's very common and it's something that we all can relate to in a way. And this character does the same thing, but he takes it to that next step where it enters you can relate to the character, but if you take the actions that he does, like, that's the problem. He has a fake television set with cardboard cutouts and like all these things where, I mean, similar things were echoed in Joker. In the modern time, it was done over the top, and everything was more cinematic, and his daydreams were, the budget is through the roof and technology, all that bullshit. But it doesn't feel as jarring compared to that film. It feels wrong. Like, don't get me wrong. It feels not good, but it was like more subtle, and like the tone of the film is more subtle and easygoing compared to that. Mm-hmm. And obviously because I think the violence plays a humongous role, and I think the soundtrack pushes that film in a different direction, and the character is more psychotic. But this one just kind of felt like you were watching a loser win.
Yeah.
And I liked that. But it also like raised the questions of, like, I don't know if the film itself does the same for me as like Joker did, because I felt bad when I left the theater at Joker, and I'm sure if I watch it this again, I'd still feel like wrong and uncomfortable.
I felt like I needed to take a shower after I was done watching that movie. Mm-hmm. I felt grimy. Not the case with this movie.
And it's something that I think Joker, it mirrors that same ending where you don't know if it really happened all the way through. There's like allusions to it's all in your head. And I think like all these things did happen. And I think Joker, the events of that movie did happen as well. But it's really the ending that feels like in question.
And we'll definitely get into that.
I'm right. We're only 20 minutes in. I'm trying to wrap a bow on this thing. Let's talk about some of our characters. Like, we have De Niro. He plays Rupert Pupkin. Don't say it incorrectly. Most people spell it and say it incorrectly.
Which is like one of my favorite running gags in the movie. We also have Jerry Lewis, who, when I recommended this movie, I incorrectly said that he sang the song Great Balls of Fire. I believe that is Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lewis is a comedian from the 50s and
played the original Nutty Professor.
Yeah.
Before Eddie Murphy.
And he plays Jerry Langford, the talk show host in this movie. A fantastic portrayal, actually. I think I felt the most sorry for him throughout the film.
He was the character you root for, in my opinion. And I really loved like all the intricacies of like show business, like that late night television, the recording of the show prior to its airing, like earlier in the afternoon, in the evening. This world like felt super alive, and I loved all like the production teams and his secretaries. I loved that side of that character. Like I liked watching Rupert fuck all that shit up for everybody. But
yeah.
And then we also have like our other delusional character,
Masha. Yeah, like the kind of half friend, half enemy of Rupert. Really, besides like Jerry and Rupert, all the other characters are just kind of like window dressing. Like, it really is about the two main characters, and then the other ones are like the condiments. You have like Rita, the girl that Rupert tries to pick up at the bar.
Yeah. To me, if we're referencing Joker quite a bit, god damn, they freaking ripped that shit. Like,
straight up.
I don't know the intention behind the plot copy at all. Like, I mean, I understand maybe it's homage. Who directed Joker?
Todd Phillips. The guy that did the Hangover movies, which is like really odd.
Yeah, I remember that being like the big sell point for his the director side of things. It's like the guy that did the Hangover films is doing like this super dark, quote unquote, Joker DC movie. You know, maybe it's I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. Like, is it him paying homage to Scorsese or the film itself that he felt like it didn't get referenced enough, or maybe like he was trying to shine light on the fact that movie didn't receive well? Or maybe I remember his comment saying you can't do a film today in Hollywood without it having a superhero on it. And I know Scorsese shares the same sentiment when it comes to like these big box office movies now. It feels like it's more about the studio and less about the director or the film itself. It's like this big merchandising thing.
And we've seen that recently. I went and saw the new Doctor Strange movie a couple weeks ago. And I remember when we were buying tickets, there was like 100 showtimes that you could choose from, different theaters, different formats.
I've seen there's a a film YouTuber that I follow. His name's like Karsten. I can't pronounce his last name. I meant to watch the thing, but it's like literally the thumbnail was like 20 showtimes for a day. Mm-hmm. Like, why is that? Like, why is that necessary?
Well, Disney makes it mandatory to have a certain amount of showtimes for their movies, or else they threaten to like not show it at that theater. And that would be like a huge financial hit for the theater to not show the new Doctor Strange, the new Spider-Man. Do you remember buying tickets for The Northman a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. Dude, there was like 4 showtimes.
Opening weekend.
Yeah. And, oh, goddamn. Yeah, that bothered me because we saw it in the Dolby Cinema format, basically IMAX, but with reclining seats. That bothered me.
Yeah, it doesn't give like independent or original ideas a chance to like be successful. Mm-hmm. We've kind of like, when we reviewed Luca a couple weeks ago, I mean, we like shit all over Disney at the end of that one. And it's like that same sentiment. Like, it feels like they have this monopoly over everything.
I've noticed the culture change around the films of Disney, Pixar, Marvel quite a bit in like the last few years. Because I remember you had just recently watched Endgame for the first time, like watched the Marvel movies front to back, basically, in the last year or two.
I did.
I remember I went and saw Infinity War and Endgame like opening day, and like it was like, honestly, I did that, like I did it like before work a couple of days, and I did that because I didn't want to be spoiled or anything, and I went by myself because my girlfriend like was at the time like wasn't really into this, like the Marvel movies at all. And I remember like when I watched Endgame in theater by myself, I felt so complete and done and over with it. Like, I felt like I had watched my early adolescence developed into my young adulthood through these films. Like, I remember when Iron Man came out, like I went through that. I watched all that shit when Avengers came out. We did that shit as a family. And same with Star Wars. Like, we went and saw all the Star Wars movies opening weekend. They come out near the holidays. We'd go see them as a family. And now I'm at the point where we have like Disney Plus, all this shit, and it feels kind of annoying at a point where I'm like, I want to see maybe 2 Marvel movies a year. Like, maybe. I want to, like, when Spider-Man comes out, like, I'm all about it. When, like, another Avengers movie, like, I want to go see the new Thor movie when it comes out.
But I'm sure I will as well.
All this other shit, like
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, and the next Black Panther movie and all this stuff.
Meh.
And like, all these Disney Plus series. Like, I tried to watch Moonlight, and I watched, like, 3 episodes or 4 episodes, and I was like, this is just, like, work at this point. Mm-hmm. Like, it felt like I don't care about this character. I don't care if Oscar Isaacs is playing him. It just feels like big kid toys. It feels like I go down the Target aisle and I pick out my Power Ranger or whatever the fuck the toy is for the movie that I watched as a 12-year-old. But now it's in the form of a streaming service and a show. It bothers me because it just feels like shit gets watered down and has no importance.
One of my big gripes about going to see this recent Doctor Strange movie is that I felt like I needed all these like prerequisites to like understand, just to understand the plot. Mm-hmm. And that's a little ridiculous.
I've been spoiled slightly, but I still haven't even seen the movie. And just from like what I can see and tell, the whole multiverse thing, I just have a feeling that it's going to be like Doctor Who, where like there's a new doctor like every so many seasons, where like there's going to be another Iron Man, another Captain America, and they're going to start playing on the multiverse so they can like shoehorn actors in and actors out for their budget and their time constraints. And like Chris Evans gets tired of playing Captain America, and so does Robert Downey Jr. on Iron Man. And it's like, it just feels, I don't know, it just feels like one big jerk off. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I don't want to be part of the jerk circle anymore. And like the few fans that are left over, there needs to be stakes again. Like, it felt like a special event to build up to Thanos. And like, that was amazing. And I'm pretty sure they're building up to Galactus now, like the World Destroyer, Planet Eater, like Galaxy Eater.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is.
Exactly. I think the Silver Surfer Fantastic Four movie like played on Galactus, but it was like poorly received at the time. Pretty sure it was a Fox IP at the time, like the Fantastic Four. I think it might still be.
Hey, but Fox is owned by Disney now, so it's all the same.
It just,
I feel like we're doing the beginning of the episode in the middle of our episode right now. How do we get on this topic again?
We're talking about Martin Scorsese hating.
That's right.
And that's my point.
This movie would flop now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, honestly, The Joker was kind of received poorly. Like, I'm pretty sure it has a higher audience score than critic score, and I'm pretty sure the critic score is like somewhere in the 60s, like 63 or 64.
I mean, I'm one of the few people that I know that doesn't love that movie. I've always said that it's a 6 out of 10 script with like a 10 out of 10 performance.
But listen, that's important because it was literally this movie, but instead of Robert De Niro, you're watching Joaquin Phoenix play a comic book character, and that was the selling point.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. Like, it's fun to see fun movies, but god damn, like, keep them fun. Or
we need new blood.
Yeah.
There needs to be a new franchise that's popular for like 5 years, takes over pop culture, and then the next thing comes out. It can't just be Marvel and Star Wars for the rest of my life.
Part of me wanted Dune to be that, and
I thought it was going to be that.
Even when I finished the first Dune novel, I was like, nah, it's just not.
Like, this is not going to speak to people.
And I'm excited to see part 2. Like, Christopher Walken got cast as the Emperor.
I saw that.
Makes me super excited. Although, I hope it doesn't turn into, like, some sort of memed up thing because, listen, Christopher Walken has, like,
I hope it does.
the most like one of the most iconic voices next to, like, Morgan Freeman. He just has that, you know it's him when you hear him. I don't think there is going to be that thing, man.
Like, there's nothing else coming down the pipeline that's going to take over.
I think Dune could be that, but it's too dense for a lot of people. And I don't mean that just in like lore. I just mean thematically. It's not a fun series at all. Like I've read the 3 out of the 6 books so far, and there is like little action. It's all philosophy and politics. It ain't gonna be it, man.
What was the last big franchise movie that caught the eye of pop culture?
Lord of the Rings.
I think so. God, that was 20 years ago. Harry Potter was probably in the camp too. Nothing since then.
I mean, Hunger Games, like, don't get me wrong, Hunger Games, there was The Maze Runner, which The Maze Runner fucking sucks. That's one of the worst trilogies I've ever seen.
I can't believe you've seen it.
My girlfriend, me and Elizabeth, we went and watched the third one together. And I went and watched the first one. You get the point.
Even with the Hunger Games, I mean, it was here and then it wasn't. Like, what long-lasting impact have we seen from the Hunger Games? Like, Avatar, like, that was kind of like that for the year it came out. And then
it's coming back, apparently.
Yeah, maybe that'll re-spark the popularity of that franchise. But when that came out that year, like, it was all Avatar. And then afterwards, I feel like the mark it left on pop culture, like, disappeared kind of.
I think the third and fourth Hunger Games movies suck, like, bad.
I haven't seen them. I've
They're
only seen the
bad.
first 2.
But that's the thing, too. It's like, it's a young adult market for stuff like that, where it feels like, what's the last thing that, like, families, like kids and adults could get behind? I mean, I don't really think The Lord of the Rings is something marketable to younger kids and everything, like Star Wars could be, or Marvel, for example, but
won't sell a whole lot of action figures.
I don't know. But it does raise the question, too, of, like, the time we live in with streaming and, like, all these shows getting these humongous budgets. I'm working through Better Call Saul right now, but I would consider that obviously an adult TV series.
Yeah.
I mean, but, like, Game of Thrones, same thing. I don't know, man. There just hasn't really been something that hasn't been just, like, strictly owned by, like, these major... I mean, like, look, that's what gets them fucking out the door and into on our plates and everything, is these major studios. But goddamn, you just notice the machine working itself so much more, especially as I've come into adulthood. Like, don't get me wrong, I like it, but just like every once in a while, I can't put in the time. There's a market for your time, and you know, you pay $15 a month to receive your time to get ate up by Disney Plus if you want to watch all these films and movies that come out.
I love how we're having this conversation about, like, the just smallest scale movie.
It's only been like 10 minutes for that, but anyway, I think Masha, she reminds me of the one bitch from The Hateful Eight. Like, you just want to get her, like, you just want to see her get beat up.
Yeah.
she kind of like everybody hates her. Like you hate when she's on screen, you hate when she talks, you hates when she's just there.
Oh, but she's great portraying this character.
Yo, for sure. That's the point.
Yeah. She makes you hate her.
You just want to see Samuel L. Jackson beat her up. So, man,
I kind of want to see Rupert get beat up in a way too.
Oh, dude.
As much as like I think he's kind of a sympathetic character, there's a part of me that wants him to succeed, but he's like so fucking irritating.
I get really frustrated with the way he handles everything. It's something that in the Joker was played off in a little bit more of a like the mental illness aspect, but in this film it felt, and it may have just been the tone that the movie created, and it didn't like hit the spots that I felt like it would happen in Joker, where like it felt like the decisions from the character were wrong and rude and evil and mischievous. But in this one, it kind of felt like De Niro's character as Rupert was almost kind of an idiot. And
oh, for sure. Like bumbling
yes.
idiot. But he was able to twist situations to go the way he wanted to, at least like most of the time.
As a viewer, he felt unintelligent and more, he was like hyper obsessed with this one thing. And I get really frustrated about like, I think it's okay to daydream and have like these goals, and the fact that 99% of us will never get there to our like these dream spots that we have. But I do think it's important to like have those goals and things to work at, even if you don't achieve them on like this great scale that like even Rupert's trying to achieve. Be in front of TV and have your name cemented in pop culture and people know you as a household name. It's fun to dream about being famous and or making it big, hitting it, like getting rich, all these things. I admire when people move towards those things. But Rupert's the character that like doesn't put in the effort to actually do the small bits of like hard work and taking advice from these like the producers, and he was actively combating them, even though like as a sane person in those situations you could be rejected and like really like take it to heart and like focus and like I'm gonna go and do what she said. I'm gonna go work the comedy club and like I'll tape it again and I'll give them a call. Give me like 6 months. I'll have them back down here and they'll be begging me. But no, he forces it.
He wants to go straight to point B.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to be famous right now.
Mm-hmm.
I look at this movie in a different light after watching it multiple times, especially with like the opening scene, him showing up at the back of the building where like all these autograph chasers are, and he has that first conversation where he kind of forces himself into a situation where he's in the limo with Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And on first viewing, you might get the impression that he is just a big fan of Jerry, and like he's talking to him about like his line delivery. He's like, "Oh, Jerry, your timing is great," and like blah blah blah. And then like everything he does after that scene negates like the fandom that you think he had. He doesn't care about Jerry Langford. He sees him as the way in. He's not like this big fan like Masha is.
That's also true. Like he wasn't like begging and crying for the autograph. He was, yeah, that's a great point.
He wanted a shot. And even if you look at the delusions that he has, where like he's friends with Jerry, like in this some kind of like future time, in those delusions, he always makes Jerry look like kind of a schmuck. Where
begging him to take over a show.
Yeah, like, "Oh, dude, I'm so tired. I can't do it anymore." And he's
like, "Jerry, what do you think? I mean, I can barely manage my own life. I want to take over you." Putting Jerry below him.
Yeah, he doesn't care about Jerry.
That's a great point. Also, I love the way the film opens up with the title card and all the credits. The opening credits are framed over the still frame of like the lady in the car, like Masha freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude. Honestly, that's one of the coolest fucking openings I've seen in a long. It reminds me of like it's playing like some sort of like jazz tune.
Yeah, the freeze frame with this like slow meandering jazz tune. I feel like that song kind of gives off the energy of Rupert, like this kind of like sad sack kind of guy.
I thought there's some things I want to uncover about Rupert. Like he's such a piece of shit. Like God, he tries to force himself into like the guy that's already made it, and he like tries to capture that energy, and it's actually like the complete inverse of Jerry Langford. Jerry's like this humble, soft-spoken dude. When he's not on camera, he's like
Just wants to be left alone.
be peaceful and relax. Rupert's like everywhere he goes, he like is making a show out of it. Like if he's talking to the bartender or just people he's interacting with, like especially on the street, like he's hogging the payphone waiting for Jerry to call.
And of course, he's giving the excuses that give him this sense of self-importance. Like, I'm waiting for a call from Jerry Langford right now. It's very important.
And I love one of my favorite shots in the whole film is when he's at that studio. And this is probably in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and he's at the receptionist desk and he calls Jerry, and he leaves a voice message or whatever the fuck, and she's like, was that really Jerry Langford? The way the shot is, it's like mirrored off the back wall, so you don't get to see Rupert. You're watching the reflection through the mirror behind the receptionist, and I thought it was really good framing because you get to see her twice, and you're watching Rupert interact with her over her shoulder through the mirror. I thought that was great. That, and I just love the architecture of the time in New York City. Like,
so do I.
The interior design is fucking through the roof. If I could get Elizabeth to watch this movie, she would appreciate it just for that reason.
You think so?
Yeah. Fun fact, my girlfriend's an interior designer, so yeah, she's a spoiled white girl.
I feel like they made the streets of New York feel really alive, too. I don't know if you know this, but like New York used to be kind of a shithole in like the 70s, 80s, 90s.
It's a shithole now again, but yeah.
Yeah. When I went a couple years ago, it was great.
When I went, it was fun. It was still a shithole.
They really capture like the overcrowdedness. Like every scene, there's like 1,000 extras at all times. Did you know during that scene where he's waiting for the phone call, the people that are waiting behind him are actually the rock band The Clash?
No.
It's like the most random
That
trivia.
is super random. What the fuck?
Thought that was kind of cool.
I never even heard of that band.
The Clash? I'll tell you about some songs once I can remember the names. It'll be off the mic. How did you feel about Rupert when you were like getting into the movie, like that first scene in the limousine?
I really thought he was super calm and collected at first. I knew going into it, since you kind of already told me it was pretty much what Joker was based off of, I was like, something's wrong about him and I'm going to figure it out. But the way he approaches in the first few moments of the film are like pretty chill. He's like collected. At first I thought like maybe he's actually Jerry's friend. Like maybe he actually does know him, and like maybe they have a relationship already. Like maybe like they're friends. It's gonna be somehow like the movie's gonna be about their relationship. Like and Masha, the girl that gets in the limo, was just like some crazy bitch at the beginning. like she would have had no role throughout the rest of the film.
I think realistically, what we can like interpret from De Niro in this movie is that he probably has met Jerry before that limo scene. He's probably staked out of that building like 1,000,000 times at that point. I bet it was when he goes to drop him off at Jerry's hotel or his apartment, and he won't let him go.
Shows him his pride and joy.
Yeah. Hey, that wasn't a bad gag.
Not too shabby.
The movie just makes you cringe, kind of. It's this really awkward sense of dark comedy where in most movies it's like, okay, Rupert would let him go now, and then he stops him like 3 more times after that. Like, Jerry, like, oh, you're a prince.
Yeah.
God, it's so uncomfortable.
It reminds me, I'm trying to think about a way of talking about it without seeming rude. It could be like a lesson in a lot of ways. Like, we know people that don't know how to take those types of social cues and that body language. It feels like his character Rupert is like vomiting out like everything that he needs to say. Like it feels like this last ditch effort. Like I'm gonna die in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and it's like similar to Masha later on throughout the film, where they actually have Jerry tied up and she's having a dinner with him, and she just says, "I want to tell you everything about me." It's such this. They like idolized him in this way, and like he doesn't give like 2 fucks about any of it. And even in like a hostage situation, you could say like it would be best to entertain your capturer and give them what they want, but he's just like fucking stone face. No, I don't give a fuck.
I felt the vibe that like something similar to this has happened to him before because he like doesn't sell it at all. And his like lack of reaction actually makes that scene kind of funny.
It definitely like helps relieve the tension because if they took the direction of like Jerry giving them what they want, first off, it would make the film darker, and then also it would give validation to the characters, and that would come across on the screen like, oh, these characters have won in a way. But that choice to like make Jerry like he gives no fucks, it helps cement the fact that these are just like a bunch of fools, which is great. We skipped quite a bit ahead, but I think
And we're just moving around. It's okay.
like some of my favorite scenes were with the receptionists. Like I love watching people navigate customer service so much. It feels so good. It's an art in itself to be a receptionist, let alone do it with a crazy person in front of you. That shit makes me happy. I've dealt with crackheads before. It's fucking awesome. Like it makes for the best nights. Oh my god, it's the best. Because you're navigating it in the moment. You're like, this is going to be 5 minutes of my life that I'll never get back, and it's always like, oh man, I delivered to this guy, and he
God, what happened?
It's like I missed the house, and I like pulled up, and I delivered to their neighbors before, and I rolled down my window, and I've already had problems with the neighbor before. The neighbors had cussed me out like a couple years back.
Oh my god!
And fucking, I was like, hey, is this the house? Like, is this you guys? And he's like, no, it's for that douchebag over there on the other side of this building. And he's like, it's the church. And I'm like,
The douchebag at
yeah.
the church?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
I was like, okay. And so I knock on the door, and he's like, who is it? And I'm like, oh my god, it's one of these. This is gonna be fun. And I'm like, it's your driver. Have an order for your blah blah blah, whatever the fuck his name was. And then like 2 minutes pass by, and I'm like, oh, I knock again. I knock again. Yeah, I knocked again, and I'm like, dude, come on. I was like, you ordered pizza. Like, come on. And then he opened the door, and it was immediately that same energy of blah, 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 blah. I'm going to tell you like 10 things that you don't need to know right now.
Jesus.
In this small interaction that I'm about to, like, you've already paid for your food. There's a tip on here. Let's get get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, man, I was waiting for you over there, but you passed by, so I was like, blah, 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 blah. And then now I have to go. Like, I have to go, man. And he's like, and I go, all right, man, like, just hand it off to him. I'm like, you have a good night. He's like, and he shuts the door off. I'm like, it's just this weird, chaotic energy. Oh, dude, that's Rupert and Masha. They're just like, they're basically crackheads.
Rupert's a lot better at like being ingrained into society, though. He looks down on Masha. Like, he does not respect her. He doesn't respect the other autograph chasers. Even in that first scene where he like doesn't give a fuck about people talking to him, he is able to be just charming enough to slip into these social situations. But it's when you spend more than a few minutes with him when you realize that something is off about him.
That's like the energy that the receptionists get from him.
Yeah.
He really like plays it up like, I have an appointment. And Jerry said it was, he always be able to like push the situation in the way he wants it to go. But once it gets there, that shit starts falling apart. And I love the way he rationalizes things, like when he gets kicked out, when security guards, when he gets rejected. And Masha is always there to see it happen because, she's the stalker too. She's waiting for her moments to strike as well. He always rationalizes like, oh, I was getting escorted out. Like, it was, you wouldn't understand. It's big time stuff.
He's always able to twist the reality. He's pretty good at it.
And then walking down the street, like her giving, like, you need to give this letter to Jerry. All these things where even the passersby notice that these people are fucking nuts.
Well, they're having like a full-blown like domestic dispute in the middle of the street, basically.
It's like they're from Key West or something. I've been there. I've done it.
Was that you in Key West?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was not sober, but yes.
I kind of want to talk about Rupert's date with Rita. Him trying to convince her to go on the date and then the actual date itself. Did you feel like some of the delusions were like slipped into these scenes? Because I felt like there was like some weird tone changes in their conversation, like from sentence to sentence,
Which one are you referencing? Are you talking about the train or are you talking about the prior?
Before the train.
Okay.
When he goes to see her in the bar the first time, and then when they go out to dinner with each other. I got some really weird vibes that she would transition from being really flirtatious to like being kind of scared of him.
And defensive? Yeah.
Yeah, like, and it bounced between those two tones, like...
Yeah. Like him and the autographs, like him having that autograph book. That would be... Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah, because at first, like, she's, like, really intrigued and excited. And then once he gives her his autograph, it's like... It's where, like, things start falling apart quite a bit. And that also, like, raises the question, too, of, like, the train and, like, them going to the house. Like, what... In that context...
Yeah, that stuff is really weird.
Because
that all happens, though, I think.
Yeah,
I don't think that's delusion at all.
But it's... To me, it's the her... dancing. Like, why? Like, if she's already had like these defensive stuff with him but prior, and like she's agreed to go on like this second event with him, Jesus Christ. You know what I just figured out?
What?
There's two comedians called Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer.
I know of him.
I'm Bert Kreischer and you're Tom Segura. I won't shut the fuck up, and I'm over here burping and drinking, and you're like just along for the ride going, yup.
Hey, it's a dynamic that I wouldn't trade for the world.
It's a good thing though, like we're not overweight. And like
I don't know, I'm getting there.
45. I'm right behind you, Bubby. You've got a few years on me. I'll catch up. Anyway, the like she chooses to dance with him, and she also like takes liberty of like pouring herself a drink, and
she gets comfortable really fast here.
Which I found very, very strange because the roles are reversed quite a bit in that scene where Rupert is on the defense.
And she's like the embarrassment.
I found that so odd.
Oh, you know what? That has to be semi-delusional. I feel like it has to be.
He doesn't want to dance or play music. He's like, that's extremely rude to play music. Well, part of me wonders, like, is he the one that played the music, or is he the one that asked to dance? Is he the one that poured the drink? Is he the one that went upstairs? Things like that. I also love like the butler, our little
Jono,
our Asian doorman. He is fucking awesome.
Yeah. Hey, he better be getting paid good. He does a good job in this situation.
They come in here, they make a mess of your house. I loved that. That made me so happy. That was so awesome.
I think the movie does a good job with the whole facet of, because we've seen delusions throughout the entire movie so far, when you get to that scene when De Niro and Rita are on the train together, I remember the first time I watched this, I thought, oh, it's another delusion. And they show up to the house, and I'm just thinking, oh, it's going to be like this scene, De Niro, like they're going to be buddy-buddy. And then like that creeping realization that it is real starts to come up.
Yep.
I feel like the movie did that so well.
It does transition because the edit of the movie, it's just scene after scene. And like you'll realize when you're in delusion and when you're not. But in that scene, it does start out like delusion. The train ride there itself, they almost talk to each other like a married couple. Like it seems like they're like close friends, or they're dating. She asks like, "Do I look good?" And he says, "It's a bit much." And she's like, "What do you mean it's a bit much?" "No, you look good." It's like this kind of, it's a conversation you'd have with your wife in the car on the way to dinner. Like it's something that you do. And it's like, as a male, you're trying to navigate the female questioning and the does this look good, and you do your best to say something that's non-offensive or they can take to the next level. I just go straight to it. I'm like, you look like shit. You're wearing that, like, and she knows she looks good. Okay.
Yeah, I know how you are.
God, I sound like such an abuser on the air. She I don't know. To me, it just feels so. It feels so wrong and dirty. But then I don't know. And I think that's something that Joker did better was because the delusions felt heavy and they had a lot of weight to them.
Yeah.
Like I remember when he's in the apartment of the love interest. I don't remember her name. God. And he's like, "It's been a long day." And it's like,
don't they like start making out and stuff?
Well, no, like she's like, "You're the guy from like down the hall, right?" Like that's complete delusion. Like,
yeah,
like they've never went out on a date together, all this weird shit. Like, he has this idea in his head. That feels like it had weight to it. In this movie, it felt like she was really there, but I don't know where that line is drawn so heavily as it is compared to Joker.
I might disagree with you. I think this movie does it better.
Okay.
I think it's because Rupert is charming enough, and he has an in. He's telling this woman that I'm friends with Jerry Langford, and like that would be enough to bring her along for the ride.
Gotcha.
In the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix is so fucking antisocial that I wouldn't believe this woman would spend a second with him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, the character of Arthur Fleck, that's a good way to put it. He is non-charismatic compared to De Niro's character of Rupert. Actually, Joaquin Phoenix's character of Arthur is actually like super repulsive in a lot of moments in that show. Like, he's not likable. Like, his interactions with his therapist does not give two fucking shits. Like, she's tried and tried. The people he works with like treat him like an outcast, where in this movie it feels like people don't really know him as well. Like, his relationships aren't as like pre-established compared to that.
Yeah.
Okay. I can understand where you're coming from. Maybe, I mean, it is just like different tonal changes compared to both the, like, one's a psychotic, crazy killer, and the other one's more of like a loser manipulator.
Did you notice during the scene where Jerry shows up at the summer house and the butler goes to let him in, and there's like a weird interaction where like the butler can't get the door open? And
Yeah. I've been waiting for 7 minutes.
that was an actual flub. That was an accident. It was it wasn't meant to be that way, but Scorsese kept it in the movie because they improvised around it. Yeah, I love Jerry's line about I've been waiting out here for 8 fucking minutes. Like, I really love the way that Jerry handles the situation when he actually confronts De Niro, because he never gets that mean. He keeps that patient attitude throughout the entire interaction.
Even the doorman, he says, "You handled that very well, Mr. Langford." Like, that's fucking, oh man. It does help like give that aura about, you know, Jerry himself. He has this cool, calm, he's constantly looking for peace.
Yeah.
I mean, and he does say that like later throughout the film, like, how would you feel if you had a bunch of people like you every day? They're not the only ones.
Yeah.
And
They're
that's
just like the worst ones.
It's quite interesting to frame it through that character's eyes. He could lift that golf club at any moment and like essentially defend. Like, he wouldn't get charged with any crimes because he's like, it's his house.
He had every right.
He has trespassers and, you know, all these things. And I don't know. I really, God, he's a great character.
Rupert or
Jerry.
Both of them.
They're
really.
great. But you know, Jerry's quite a bit more likable. I really loved his scenes where it's just him walking down the street, like just trying to catch some air on his way to his next meeting, getting some lunch.
This is my favorite sequence of the movie, I think.
Because it does like kind of help bring him back down to earth. I've been to New York. I've said on the podcast before, but like I've seen Katie Holmes out in New York City walking around. I met like some guy that starred in the Naked Brothers Band movie. I think I gave that spiel before, but it just felt like he's just like you and I, except he's just on this platform. And I found that really cool, like the way he interacts with just pedestrians walking by. He gets cheered on by construction crew members, and then the old lady tells him to go get fucking cancer.
Did you know that entire sequence, Scorsese allowed Jerry Lewis to direct it himself because it was based off of real life interactions that he had had?
That's badass.
The original version of the Jerry Langford character actually was named something else, like Robert Langford. But since Jerry's name is Jerry, and the fact that they were like filming on the streets of New York, he recommended that he have his real first name so that when they go out and film, when people
holler Jerry,
like it would be in canon of the movie. So some of those like people that are cheering him on were like not scripted.
That's badass.
I thought that was really cool.
Like there's at one point like some guy like just walks up and shakes his hand, probably saying like big fan. It's through the frame of the car when they're prior to the kidnapping. Okay, that's actually really fucking dope. That's This is why when you write notes, it's always like super informative. When I write notes, it's like, oh man, didn't you fucking feel that? I gotta piss. Believe it or not, I gotta piss before you.
I think I do too.
Piss break.
All right, let's talk about Jerry a little bit more. You know, the scene prior to the kidnapping where Rupert gets kicked out is like a really great sequence. Actually, couldn't help but think about Better Call Saul in a way for some reason.
I thought of that show multiple times while watching this. It's got the same pacing.
And maybe it's just, I don't know, the cinematography in such casual settings feels important and relatable to that show. I'm not really saying that the cinematographers and directors of that show like pull from Scorsese, but
They might.
Yeah, they might. Who knows? This is not material that I can reference, it would be an assumption, but it does feel really fun, entertaining. It feels like you're like going through a maze of an office building, which can be like similar to certain setups in Saul, where you're at a lawyer's office or like a day spa, or like just these normal mundane locations that can kind of feel like they get like an extra treatment of spectacularity. That's a word.
It is now.
Yeah.
I think that's especially apparent when he decides to like go behind the scenes on his own, and they do this really long handheld shot, and they're following him through like cubicles and like multiple door frames, and he walks out one door frame and the camera goes through another, and like the energy of the shot is like so kinetic. It is super nice.
That reminds me so much of Saul, actually.
A ton.
Bob Odenkirk's character as Jimmy, or Saul, however you want to name him, he does have those moments where he decides this conversation's not over. You get a real close-up shot of his face, the decision-making in his head, and that turn back around to go right back through that doorway.
Yeah.
That does feel like very similar. That panning shot through, man, I love the architecture so much. Like, I wanted to sit in this receptionist area so bad. Like, I was like, man, it looked like something straight out of fucking 2001: A Space Odyssey or something. Like, it felt so hip and like sci-fi influenced. Like, the bubble wall that the receptionists were sitting behind, like the glass was like curved.
The weird circular couch that Rupert waits on with like the pole coming out of it.
And the choice of color was super cool. Like these like dark, deep blue hues on the wall, and it was covered up by like it had like a glass wall in between, like almost like this L shape that went around into like the office area. It felt good to walk through the office. It was like this like coveted, prized area that like Rupert was hoping to get that handshake and walk through. I love the sequence where he's being chased by security. It felt like some fucking Tom and Jerry shit where you're looking through the doorway, where like these poor young ladies were doing some sort of paperwork, and you're getting to watch them view Rupert walk back and forth getting chased by security guards.
Yeah.
All while staring at like a retro Bugatti poster. I found that super fucking cool. Fun things about time capsule movies like this, where you're coming like, I wasn't born when this movie came out. I don't ever think about like what brands were before I came to be. And it's cool to see like Bugatti. I this is a song that or a car company that rappers sing about, and hyper rich people show off their vehicles to YouTubers, and it just felt cool to see like, oh, that's a retro Bugatti poster sitting right there. Like shit like that. People were drinking Coke out of a can at certain points of the film. Like, oh yeah, Coke cans used to be shaped like that, or little things.
I think it's interesting how these last two scenes, like him at the summer house and then him getting violently thrown out of the receptionist's office, are like kind of the tides turning to him hatching that plan with Masha to kidnap Jerry. Because like throughout the movie up until that point, his manipulating and his like social skills have helped him. They've like guided him through those situations. When we finally see him fail and fall flat on his face, that's when he goes to take like extreme measures. And we can move into the kidnapping if you want to, because I feel like this is not a big tonal change, but it is a tonal change.
I like the costume design that they choose for Rupert and Masha as well. Like, the characters themselves almost change personality with the costume change. De Niro's now wearing like a Hawaiian shirt and a fedora and like dark ass shades, and she's wearing like some sort of almost like black formal slip dress. It just felt like some Mission Impossible shit. Like they're about to go catch the bad guy, or they use a fake gun.
Yeah.
And he fucking drops it on the way out of the car.
God, he's such an idiot.
God,
it's hilarious.
Oh my God, it's like part of me like thinks that was like an accident and was left in, but then also it's like no,
it's super in character for him. Did you notice that like during the kidnapping scenes from here on out, Rupert's demeanor changes? He's no longer like trying to sell something. He's no longer as animated as he once was. I think this becomes more apparent when they actually bring Jerry back to Masha's house and they're trying to do like the hostage negotiation stuff. I think one of my favorite scenes of the entire movie is when they make Jerry call back to his office and De Niro is like holding up the cue cards. And this scene comes across like total, I don't want to say slapstick, but it's like really low common denominator kind of comedy. But it's really funny regardless of that.
I, like, not to say that I'm some criminal mastermind, but I could not help but think, like, why not just type out all those words on a single piece of paper and have him read it?
He's a showman.
Why the cue cards? Why the cue cards? That seems like the most effort. It's like...
There's 7 cards, I think.
Yeah, like 7 or 8 cards. It's like, and half of them have like 2 words on them. And it's like, you could have fit that all like in the top half of a fucking notebook paper.
Jerry's selling of the situation, trying to read the cue cards. He's like so fed up. And
like it's a complete opposite of having a gun to your head. He's so comfortable in this situation, which makes me much happier.
I laugh throughout the scene, but I get the biggest chuckle at the end when he finishes reading the cue cards. And then he says, "It's not grammatically correct, but I think you get the idea." This is my kind of comedy. I love shit like this.
I found it interesting, the character dynamic. Like, they're still fighting over Jerry at this point. Like him trying on the sweater and, oh, you've had your time with him. Whose house is this? And who helped you? And who drove us? And he's like, well, if it wasn't for me, we wouldn't even be in this situation. Like, they're fighting over whose idea it was to kidnap. They're still obsessed with this aura
of celebrity.
God, I cannot, dude. It's so weird seeing De Niro in such a small personality, like in such a victim, diminished character.
It's a big personality, but he is like at the bottom of the totem pole. He's such a loser.
I don't want to say victim, but he just like you feel sorry for him, and not in like a I want to help you, but like I wish there was less people like you kind of way. Like he feels so like a plague, and it's so odd seeing De Niro capture a character like that. I'm used to him being so stoic and stern.
You don't want to see an actor be cool in every movie.
I don't know. Have you seen Bruce Willis in Looper? I'm pretty sure it was part of his contract to kill X amount of people.
That's right. I did make that point, didn't I? There's got to be one movie where Bruce Willis plays like a slapstick idiot. I feel like there has to be. I can't think of it, but I know it's out there, and I probably haven't seen it.
It's his persona, man, is to be that guy. Kind of similar to seeing like Buscemi. I view him as like this weaselly piece of shit comedy character.
Yeah.
And also he turned into like an Adam Sandler C character at some point.
God, De Niro kind of became that later in his career too. Meet the Fockers and doing these stupid like romantic
the payday roles, dude. The payday roles.
Yeah.
I've been thinking quite a bit about that lately, where what's his name? Colin Farrell. He played the Penguin in the new Batman movie, and it was like, it was a role he dedicated himself to. He came out with a movie recently where he plays, I don't know, some sort of badass hitman type of character. I can't remember. I'm gonna look it up right now because I don't want to fucking miss it. But I keep getting clips of it on my YouTube for some reason, and for some reason I decide to give them energy. I can't help but view it as a payday role.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I know this guy's getting paid, and he probably didn't think more than 4 months of the shooting that they had to do for the film.
Yeah. God, Colin Farrell does not strike me as action hero type.
I believe it's The Gentleman, actually, from 2019.
Oh, I've seen that. That is not how his character is in that movie, if that's the movie you're thinking of.
Does he have an accent?
He does.
Does he talk like that? Like something like that? Something like that?
Hey, that's pretty good. That's a good movie. You would like that one.
Okay.
It's got
Does
Matthew
he like
McConaughey.
beat up the kids in the subway shop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe I'm reading into that movie incorrectly.
He has a small role
Okay.
in that one. It's a smaller scale than you would think.
Haven't seen The Lobster.
Really weird one.
Anyway, I don't know. You think about actors and what do they do? Like Al Pacino and Jack and Jill. That's a payday role for you. Although he does play a really great Al Pacino as Al Pacino.
He's really good as himself.
I really hope they bring back the Dunkaccino one of these days.
Yeah, that's like a meme that deserves to be recognized.
If they did an ad campaign bringing back Jack and Jill and advertise the Dunkaccino, I'd buy it.
I'd buy a coffee. Sure.
Dunkin' coffee sucks ass,
Yeah,
but I'd get it.
Could you ever see like DiCaprio going down that lane?
God, I fucking hope not.
He seems like he's been really selective about the roles he's been in.
He's also like super selective with like the age range of women he dates. So part of me thinks that the guy's a little bit more calculated about the things he chooses in life.
God damn it. I hope he's like not a monster.
Yeah, we hope.
He's really good.
I'm pretty sure he was friends with Harvey too.
Oh, God damn it.
Anyway, moving on.
The kidnapping.
Let that sit on your brain while you're going to sleep tonight. The kidnapping stuff. I want to talk about the dinner scene and moving through like the last 30 to 40 minutes of the film, where De Niro's finally in his element. Rupert in the full swing of things, getting what he wants.
Does this really take up 40 minutes?
It's probably like 30.
It like flies by for me.
The last 10 minutes flew by for sure. God, you're right. It does fly by. You know, I looked at the time when we started moving into, when I was watching it this morning, I was like, damn, there's like 20 minutes left of this movie, and I feel like it's got to have like some big shebang at the end.
Yeah, it wraps up really fast.
I really love this ending sequence quite a bit. I love the balance between like this hostage situation and the show business. Like that's super fun and super unique. Like in Joker, like it kind of just like they all take his word. It kind of feels like they're unaware. The production team, Robert De Niro's character, is completely unaware. Like Murray is unaware of what's about to happen. In this film, it's like, no, everybody has got the memo. Like, we have a special situation on our hands. We're going to let him do his opening monologue, and then we're going to move on with the rest of the show from there. There's a guest host, which I found, I don't really ever think about it, but like, yeah, hosts do take time off. It's been a while since I've watched a late night show, but yeah.
It's a rough job, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Could you imagine like being away from your family, like in the evenings? Oh, wait. Yeah, I do. I work at Domino's. Anyway, you know, I thought as a viewer, it was like fun to watch this because it kind of feels like it's about to crumble at any point, you know, because you know what's happening. Everybody's aware that Jerry's been taken hostage. They're trying to get information out of Rupert, and Rupert's just like fucking going with it. He's like,
he doesn't care at all. He has like a really chilling acceptance of the fact that he's going to be in jail after all this, but he knows that it's his chance.
I want to talk about thematically with Masha, her character. I found it very refreshing as a male because, you know, historically we've been oppressed as white men.
Stop.
I really found like a little bit of like the sexual assault angle that happens, like really refreshing. Imagining that in like 80s pop culture was probably super off-putting in a way.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was like really, really refreshing because it's always the opposite. And at least from my perspective, anytime you like kidnapping movies, it's always like a female being kidnapped and a male kidnapper. And this one, it felt really refreshing to watch this crazy psychotic woman. She literally undresses in front of him and like he's taped up, and Jerry has like this super calm aura about him. Like as a male, I'm like, I would be really uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I like to fuck, but Jesus Christ. Like, you know, that angle was really refreshing to me, and it felt way ahead of its time. And then also, I like watching him punch this bitch in the face. And this is finally like you kind of get to see a little bit more besides the showmanship of the film with these characters kind of going off the rails. Like, she goes on this monologue about how my doctor says I'm not allowed to have fun, but tonight I'm having fun. Don't forget that this is a person with some real problems, and you're kind of just caught up in this crazy predicament. I found that really, really cool. And it's something that's a little bit removed from the rest of the film when it kind of like helps you pull back a little bit. And then also, the same thing happens with Rupert. You know, earlier in the film, we get the sequence with him recording his tape. And he's like arguing with his mom. You know, you don't think twice about it. You know, mom's never on camera. During Rupert's monologue, he references his mother being dead.
For a long time,
For 9 years.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a different direction than I thought the movie was going to take, because the movie does have, you mentioned earlier, like some slapstick comedy moments and like dark comedy and like these awkward humor. This is one of those moments that helps you like kind of pull back. Like, don't get me wrong. I thought his fucking monologue was fucking great. Like,
it was really good.
Comedically was really funny. And I don't know, like, comedy changes through the ages.
This is a super old style of comedy for sure.
It's just out of my lack of knowledge, but like part of me wonders, like, in the 80s, was like this comedy too dark for the time? Did that help sell the chaos and the psychotic nature of the character?
Because this seems normalized now.
Correct. And like, I could find anything like this and stuff that pushes the envelope harder.
It especially comes out during his little spiel about vomiting. His mom was an alcoholic, so he got used to her throwing up all the time. So he thinks that throwing up is a sign of maturity. And
like a rite of passage.
And he's like talking about his dad beating his ass outside and like it makes him throw up. And he's like, I'm a man now. The way he delivers it is really funny, but there's like so much sadness behind the truth of his stand-up.
Yep.
God damn.
It's a great opening monologue, though. I'm surprised they rejected him. Like, real talk.
Well, he didn't work on it. He didn't take the classic, bottom rung of the ladder to the top. You never see him go to a show and study other comedians. You never see him perform stand-up comedy before this part. And we kind of covered this earlier in the show. Even when they show you that he's recording the tapes in his basement to show to the secretary lady, his entire tape is all bullshit. It's all like introduction and like this like theatrical nature. Where
now
it's like,
introducing.
And it goes on forever. And he never gets to that part where he's showing his talent. Maybe he could have been something if he took the normal route.
And that was what I was alluding to earlier with, I can't stand him because he has it, but he wants it right now. Even when they were going through the house with Rita and like looking at photos of Rupert and all this stuff, it's like he was telling, or not Rupert, excuse me, Jerry. Rupert was telling stories about Jerry and all these like photos, and when they sent in this photo, I thought it was a gag, but no, it really is him from when he was a kid, and like this hyper fan trivia. And then one of the problems I do have with it, it's that I don't really know this character's motive.
Rupert's?
Yeah, like, and I'll explain it this way. In The Joker, Arthur Fleck's character, it seems like his trauma is so much more apparent than Rupert's, littered throughout, and you get it much more early on than, Rupert's character, where like Rupert's character, you get to like really know him at like the last 10 minutes during his monologue. Like that's where you kind of get that information. And then like Arthur Fleck's character, the film opens up with him in therapy. You get to see like his outcast life, like his daily, he gets beat up and he gets looked down upon by his coworkers and his peers and like stuff like that, where it feels like you kind of want him to win, even if he doesn't take the right precautions to get that sort of fame. Again, similar to Rupert, but Rupert's, it's like you're kind of like thrust into the middle of it and you don't really get to see like the need and the want to make it quite yet. You're kind of just in the middle of the want and you don't know the underlying reasons behind it. Like, I think it's really fun to do like the hyper obsessed fan perspective and like run with it, and because you're kind of just thrusted into the plot right from the get-go. Where I felt like in The Joker, it was, you get to kind of see him start from the bottom and then you get to see him work his way to the top. obviously in the same negative manner that Rupert takes, but it feels a little bit more, there's more weight to it.
Yeah.
Rupert doesn't kill anybody, but I don't know his reason. Like, his character motive is he just seems mentally ill, and I don't know where that trauma comes from until the last 10 minutes. Arthur Fleck's character, it's very apparent that he has trauma from point A to point B, from beginning to end. And then Rupert's character, it's only at point B at the end where you get to find out that he's got problems.
I completely agree with you. I think you're right. The only thing is, it doesn't bug me. I don't think it necessarily has to be super in-depth about his motivation or like why he is the way he is. Like, I don't care that they don't reveal it to the very end.
No, and I mean, it is just a tonal difference. But I do think it is important to kind of get that last bit of information. Because if it was like he just went on there, did comedy, and got off the stage, and it wasn't like personal, it would have felt less impactful. And then also, I really am curious about the end of the film, because it kind of does take that same route of Joker. Like, does it mean exactly what was shown to you? What, like, did it happen? Is it more images of delusion and grandeur? Part of me thinks that this did happen. And I think what's really funny is that by today's standard, this is so feasible. This
for
could
sure.
so happen. For example, part of me thinks like Tiger King, like it was a convicted, like this guy was convicted of murder, but somehow like he's in pop culture now. Like, you'll never not know who Tiger King is. I can say Tiger King. I've never even seen the documentary, and I know who he is.
Oh, you've never seen that?
Never even seen it. Didn't give a fuck.
Oh, it's so white trash.
Exactly. I can't do that. I'm a man of culture.
I think that makes the movie even more sad, knowing that it could happen, that you can just do this like publicity stunt and end up on the top of the mountain, basically.
Well, think about Bad Baby. That girl that was on Dr. Phil, like Catch Me Outside. How about that? Like,
I forgot about that.
You get to watch like an idiot rise to fandom and like have like their own vacuum of income and publicity based off of something that was so fucking stupid. I don't know.
God, people would love Rupert. They would love him in real life.
Best-selling novel, dude. Gets his own show.
It's kind of like the thing where serial killers will get caught and they can write novels about their life, and now they have like money and fame.
The other thing is like the end of the film is him coming onto stage on his own show. He gets what he wants. And I didn't really look at it this way, but I saw other people saying he looks so empty at the end.
Like he might be facing the same trappings that made Jerry so unhappy.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's real or not. There's something really uncanny about the way he's introduced, where the announcer is like, the person you've been waiting for, and waiting, and waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's like repeating certain lines, and he says like Rupert Pumpkin's name. I just called him Pumpkin.
Pupkin.
I did the gag. Damn it. I didn't mean to. But like they keep repeating his name over and over again, and it like feels like a delusion, but it could be plausible.
Rupert Pumpkin. Let's give it up one more time for Rupert Pupkin.
Yeah, like I'm just imagining him sitting in a jail cell, imagining this whole situation. It could go either way.
That's a great name, Rupert Pupkin.
Oh, it's a terrible name.
It's a great name. It's unforgettable.
It's great in its terribleness.
I'm going to start referring to people as Rupert Pupkin when you're around, and only you and I will know who Rupert Pupkin is.
I don't know anybody else that has seen this movie besides you and my wife.
I also, before I forget, just a small note, the poster for the film, The King of Comedy, it's spelled out like a serial killer magazine cutout.
It's got the Zodiac kind of thing going for it.
Is Rupert Pupkin the Zodiac killer?
Oh my God.
Imagine.
Someone call the feds.
Anyway.
I think there's like a few small things that I wanted to mention throughout the review that I might have forgotten. I know the cinematography isn't like crazy in this movie, and I know that Scorsese on purpose kind of reeled things back and made it not as fancy as some of his other movies. But there's like one really amazing shot during one of the delusions where he's in the basement and he's performing to this like fake cutout wall of people, and like the camera is reeling back.
It almost looked like a museum. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was really cool.
That was a great shot. Also, in that scenes specifically, the audience applause has like a haunting feel to it. the sound design in that moment. It's like they sound like ghosts, or it takes such a deep and dark laughter, and it like cuts out into fuzz almost. Mm-hmm. That was really well done. I almost completely forgot about that.
The scene between Masha and Jerry when he's tied up and she's trying to like get into his pants, I guess, basically
sexually assault him.
Yeah. The entire thing is improv.
Really?
Masha, I can't remember the actress's name that played her. Sandra something. She does a really great job, because if this is improv, she's singing a song to him. She like clears the table in the most clumsy manner possible.
Sandra Bernhard.
Okay. And apparently Jerry Lewis had like beef with her on set because she took things too far occasionally, or like he didn't really agree with her approach to acting in the scene. I read an interview with her about this scene. She said that Jerry Lewis is like this old school Jewish guy, and that he had a certain view on women, that they had their place, and that he didn't like being showcased in a situation where like the woman had the upper hand. And I found that kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Poor fella.
And I guess I'll leave it off on this. This is the one last thing, but it's during the very first delusion that you see. The movie does the great job of not trying to make Rupert's personality disfects like a secret. You know how in some movies they would show those delusions and it would like just play it straight and you wouldn't know that it was fake. Mm-hmm. But they actually show like De Niro in his basement playing both parts, where he's like going back and forth, standing on one side of the room and then walking over to like represent the other character in the situation. And he gives my favorite line of dialogue where the mom comes in and he goes, "Mom, please." That shit it's super dark, but it like makes me laugh every time that I've seen it. I don't know. That's my spiel. Those are my little extras at the end.
I feel like I was so ingrained when you get between those delusions and reality. I don't know. I really couldn't differentiate between the two most of the time, and it kind of just felt like the movie was playing it straight. Everything was reality, which like felt really good when you got to reel back, and especially like when the FBI was introduced and you got to see like the producers and like these people at the network like react to the situation at hand. That felt kind of helped you pull back down to reality, because you're following that one or two, him and Masha for the most part. It felt good to like see their actions in fresh eyes. Like I found the stuff with the FBI, like him like, "Oh, like how is Jerry doing?" Like he's trying to ask these questions, but like you've become so normalized to Rupert's behavior that those questions are not really impactful in the way that they're intended to be from like an FBI perspective, not like directorially, but it felt like good to see like these hyper important questions for like a serious kidnapping investigation from like a celebrity's. Yeah, well, he could be okay, or like I want to see this air on TV, and it was like complete disregard for the situation at hand. I felt like we were behind the driver's seat of the psychopath the entire time, and that felt really good.
Yeah.
Perspective wise, it didn't feel, and even at the end, it helped like drive home that feeling of Rupert won on like these terrible terms. Rupert's a psychopath or a sociopath, whatever you want to call. I felt non-removed from that situation the entire time, even though you could, like at any point you could have been, right?
The only scene in the movie that I don't understand, or like I'm a little iffy on, is when we break away for the first time, where we're not focusing on Jerry, Rupert, or Masha. It's like the scene with all the FBI officials and the lawyers there. Yeah. And he's like, "I'm suing." Like, "Bob, who are you going to sue?" And he's like, "Everybody."
I think that scene to me was more like a setup for like the production side of things, like the whole like during the show aspect of it. Like you got to see
just showing that he's causing chaos behind the scenes.
Like watching these supporting characters like move through the situation to try to set up the end of the film. I think that was the only reason. I did find it funny that like Jerry's personal lawyer is like, "I'm gonna sue you." Who are you gonna sue? "I'm gonna sue you personally." Like just shit like that. That shit was fun. Although Rupert handles the FBI like fucking with ease,
like they're nobodies,
like a domestic terrorist, as they say. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed the film. It was like really refreshing, even compared to like it, the Joker. If that was the source material, if this was the source material for that film, I don't know. To me, it actually felt more on its own, more cohesive. The downfall of the Joker film is that it was playing on the pop culture of the character, the Joker, in the Batman universe, where like the director could have just been like, hey, why don't you go watch this movie from Martin Scorsese and I'll get across the same themes that I'm about to tackle.
Yeah.
And it felt more fun and it felt more personable and more relatable. In the Joker, it does hit those moments like the daydreaming aspects and kind of like this uncanny valley between celebrity and civilian. It's also like hyper violent and like super sadistic at times. Where in this film, like it got across the themes in like such a more comfortable way.
I agree. And Joker was like really hammering home this like mental health kind of thing with the therapist, and she's talking about they're cutting our funding. There's no more mental health help for people. This movie doesn't go into that stuff. It just says Rupert and Masha are crazy, and that's it.
Yeah, it was just more tasteful. Also, like, De Niro delivers, like, an excellent performance. De Niro's in the Joker, but it just feels like De Niro hosting a show.
And the casting of him in that movie is
obviously
super deliberate.
Yeah, it's meta.
He's playing the Jerry Langford of that movie.
And maybe that was a way for De Niro to feel like, he could recapture the film and shine light on it. But to me, I wish this movie was a little bit more popular after I've seen it. Like it feels important to me, and it's more relevant than probably when it first came out. I don't know. I liked it a lot. I don't really know, like, it's not like some masterpiece and it's not like some 9 out of 10 movie, but like to me it feels like a solid 8 or like an 8.5. There isn't much I would say about it. I didn't really pay a whole lot attention to score. I don't even know if there really was one.
I don't think there was.
To me, it just felt like a lot of the film was filled up with like ambient New York noise and a lot of dialogue. It was like very calm and relaxed, and there was nothing like to push it into those crazy boundaries that like the Joker takes liberties with. It was a really great movie though, and I feel like I understand the Joker much more now that I've seen this.
Okay.
And like that's like honestly, I could go my entire life without ever watching the Joker again. But like to me, like this is a movie that I'd show like my kids when they're like maybe like 14, something like that. If I wanted to like to consider themes like that, I would never show them the Joker. You know what I mean? To me, like this one, it's just more tasteful and more like collected in its delivery thematically. To me, that's what makes a good movie to me.
I'm glad that you had that reaction to it. Throughout the last 2 weeks, I was kind of afraid that you would like actively dislike this movie. I don't know why. Maybe because the lead character is so annoying.
I didn't say that. I didn't say he wasn't annoying. He definitely is.
For me, I disagree. I think it is a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to give it. This is my favorite De Niro performance that I've seen, at least. This is my favorite Scorsese movie that I've seen, I think. Really, this movie kind of ticks all the boxes of stuff that I like. Slow burn, anti-hero, like the main character is kind of an antagonist. Like I really like stuff like that. Yeah, I think 9 out of 10. That's probably where I'm going.
Okay.
So we can move into the part where I say I eagerly anticipate what you are going to recommend next.
We've already talked about this movie tonight.
Ooh, we have?
I had a hard time deciding like what I wanted to do per usual, but I almost recommended Ex Machina, and he told me that he picked it up at the library, and I'm like, okay, well, at least I get to know he's going to watch it soon. We're going to be watching Avatar.
I knew you were going to do this.
Hell yeah.
I was kind of hoping you would do it, too.
I kind of been, like, hyping it up recently, and I haven't watched it in years, but I've seen it many, many a times, like, too many times to count on my hands. Like, it was one of those movies that I watched after school. I'd watch it for like a week at a time. I'd watch it every day type of thing. It would be something that I'd put on while I was doing something else. It's so fucking long. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
That's okay.
But I think it would be fun to revisit now that like we're coming up on the second film. It's going to be released at the end of the year. I want to talk about special effects, story, plot, things where I think that suck about the movie, things that I think are super fun. We'll talk about Disney and all that shit again, I'm sure. We'll talk about the ride at Disney World. We'll talk about all that shit. And we'll talk about blue people and people fucking with their hair and riding these weird dragon things. And yeah, it'll be interesting. And I want to unpack the our director for the film and like the world building that goes on and all that thing. And maybe we can eagerly anticipate number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 that are supposedly supposed to come out in the following years and see what direction it might take.
This will be super interesting. I haven't seen this movie since like 2012, maybe. It's been about 10 years. So I don't remember the tone of the movie. I remember the story. The story's like kind of simple. It'll be fun to go down memory lane, talk about the cultural impact they had at the time, the special effects. I can't wait, man.
I think it'll be really, really fun. Honestly, honest to God, it'll be very similar to like the way we approach District 9. Like just to foreshadow, like it'll feel like a tech demo with like shitty plot and terrible antagonists. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun to talk about. I'm excited. But until then, just to foreshadow, we might be talking about the new Kendrick Lamar album in like an hour and a half after we're already drunk. But yeah, that should be a good time too. We'll be back on the mics here in like an hour. But until the Avatar episode, Getter, will you do me a favor and sign these motherfuckers out?
Adios.